Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Advocacy being aired on Thursday, September the 26th. Tonight, we have a guest with us, Joyce Cox, and she's going to talk to us about being a agent or a caregiver, but ultimately taking care of our loved ones, making sure everything is in place before our loved ones get incapacitated. So, we're going to start off with the introduction of our team. My name is Paula Armstrong. I'm the founder. I'm married. I live in the DMV. I have my son Jeremy, who's 24, and I also have my Morgan Pop, who's 20, and she has multiple disabilities.
I am Crystal. I reside in Michigan. I am married with five children, and I do have children with disabilities.
Hello, everybody. I am Bunny. I live in Maryland. I'm married. I have three adult children, and I advocate for my grandson who has autism.
Okay. Joyce, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Joyce. I'm married. I live in Maryland. I have three adult children and five grandchildren. Um, I've been a caregiver for actually all four of my parents, my husband's parents, as well as my own parents.
Okay. Okay. So I know that you have a lot of information to talk about as far as um, taking care or having things in place before our loved ones get to the point that they can't make their decisions. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So this is a very important topic, and it's something that we tend to ignore. I know we've done a lot of talking about it in my own home, and it's something that is so essential to have in place because it allows your family to be able to actually take care of you, your physical needs, your mental needs, your end of life to make sure you're comfortable. So there are documents that are really essential for you to have in place. Talk to your loved ones, whether it's your parents, whether it's your spouse, um, to get these documents in place. Power of attorney,
Mhm.
that is the one of the most important documents that you can have in your end of life documents. Now, there are two different types of a power of attorney. There's a power of attorney, there's a durable power of attorney. And then there's also your living will, your last will and testament, and guardianship. And with all of these, I'll go through each one of them and explain what they are, and when they come into play and when they go out of play. And really what can allow you to stay out of the courts after your loved one deceases.
And that's considered as probate, right? Is
That would
that
be
the
considered, that would be
okay?
considered.
Because we hear probate a lot. I
Mhm.
will be honest. A lot of the times when I heard it, I really did not understand it. I know my mother went through it with my grandmother. Different people always say, you want to try to avoid going through probate. So, can
Absolutely.
you tell us a little bit about probate before you start on those end of life documents that we need to have in place?
Yes. So probate, fortunately, is something that our family did not have to go through, because we were able to get a will in place for my father. And my mother-in-law had a will. My father-in-law, he had some wishes that, didn't really require dealing with a lot of finances and things of that nature. But probate is essentially when you don't have any documents in place. You don't have a last will and testament. You don't have a durable power of attorney. Your bank account, you don't have a co-owner, or you don't have uh, at death rights for those funds. Um, so the state takes over. The state comes in and takes over, and they facilitate the estate of the deceased. Probate is very expensive. Probate is very cumbersome. Probate is very stressful. It takes your family through some steps that really can be avoided if you just have these documents in place. These documents, you can acquire them online for a minimal fee, or you can go through an attorney. My family, we went through attorneys, because there are so many different levels. If you're going to do a simple, power of attorney or durable power of attorney, you could probably go online and take care of them. But when you've got multiple levels that you want to cover in these documents, I would recommend spend the $350, $500, $1,000, whatever it is, to ensure that these documents are in place and that the legal jargon is going to be upheld within, the state's guidelines and jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the power of attorney, you want to start off with that, Joyce? Okay.
Yes. So there's two different types of power of attorney. There's your normal power of attorney, and there's your durable power of attorney. And in any of these documents that we're going to talk about tonight, the individual who is having these documents drawn up on their behalf, they are the principal. So in these documents, that person is considered the principal. Mm-hmm. The individual or individuals that the principal is appointing to facilitate these documents after incapacitation or death is considered the agent. The agent and or attorney. And when we say attorney, we're not referring to a legal attorney that's gone to school and has crossed the bar. But this attorney who's being appointed has legal rights to facilitate any and everything that's on this document. Mm-hmm. So your power of attorney has minimal use. Power of attorney is good from the point of time that you put this document in place until the point of incapacitation. So when this individual who is implementing this document on their behalf becomes unable to speak, write for themselves, manage their day-to-day life, and a doctor has ruled them mentally incapable of making sound decisions, power of attorney is no longer void, is no longer valid. It becomes null and void.
I don't think I knew that.
I didn't either. I thought that's when it kicked into gear.
No, ma'am. Power of attorney is only valid while the person is capable of making sound decisions. Your durable
pen and paper so I can learn something.
I do too.
Yeah, your durable power of attorney is the document that you want. Again, power of attorney gives you some. It does give you some rights to care for or implement whatever is put into place, but really it's limited. It's limited because it ends. Your durable power of attorney, it does have a limitation to it, but it allows protections for the principal beyond capacitation until death. So the durable power of attorney ends at death, ends at divorce. If a husband and wife, have appointed their spouse as the agent for them or the attorney for them, when they get divorced, then it becomes null and void. If someone feels that the agent and or attorney is not acting in the best behavior and the best interest of the individual, of the principal, then they can come into court, take them to probate, and have the agreement voided. So those are the only ways that a durable power of attorney would become null and void. Again, that's death, divorce, in the case of spouses being appointed the agent for each other, and or if someone comes in and takes you to probate to take guardianship over the individual.
Well, Joyce, I have a power of attorney. Go ahead, Bonnie. I'm sorry.
I want to make sure that I'm understanding. Are you saying durable or doable?
Durable. DURABLE. Durable.
Okay.
And the durable. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what I don't understand is what's the purpose of a power of attorney? It seems like the power of attorney is like almost like irrelevant document. It seems like to me from the very beginning, you need to do a durable one, because if it's from the beginning to the end, then at that point, what's the point of a power of attorney? That I don't get that.
And again, I think the point of the power of attorney is for short term. So if you, for instance, when my husband was in the military, when he would be deployed overseas, we would have to put a power of attorney in place so that while he was gone, I could take care of military, affairs for him in his absence, in the thought that he was going to be returning. Now, even with that, JAG, who was the military, legal organization, I don't know that they ever offered us a durable power of attorney. If I had known then, I would have much preferred a durable power of attorney, because what if while he was
I was thinking.
right, he was killed or he became incapacitated? Well, now
Right.
the power of attorney is null and void. I didn't know that. I didn't find this out until dealing with, end of life for my parents. And
Mm.
it came up when the attorney was putting the documents into place. And I asked, well, what is a durable power of attorney? I was like, why aren't we just doing a power of attorney? And he gave me a full synopsis of what the two, the difference of the two are. So when you are having these documents put into place for yourself, I highly suggest a durable, DURABLE, power of attorney.
Because
The
I have a power of attorney. I'm getting ready to go get a durable power of attorney.
durable power of attorney.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is that for spouses, when your spouse deceases, when your spouse becomes incapacitated, if you do not have a durable power of attorney, you do not have a living will, you do not have a last will and testament, you will end up in probate because you have limited access to the if you don't have a joint account, if you don't have your spouse noted or listed as your beneficiary on your 401k, your life insurance, all of that, you're going to end up in probate because just because you're married does not mean that it automatically rolls over to your spouse. I
Mhm.
thought it did, but it does not mean that. When
Yeah.
my mother passed away, the first question was, well, do you have a power of attorney? Do you have a power of attorney? Well, no. Does she have a will? No. What do her assets equal? And it depended on the amount of the value of her assets, whether we were able to go down to the court, fill out a document to turn everything over to him. And because the assets did not equal over a certain amount of money, we were able to easily turn everything over to my father. Had it exceeded the amount that the state allows, we would have had to go to probate because my mother did not have a will and she didn't have anything in place, no legal documents in place.
And I heard you say state. So it's based off of each state. And okay.
Each state has their own jurisdictions. They have
Mhm.
their own rules, their own regulations. So I can't follow what I did in New Jersey for my family here in Maryland. You have to check
Wow.
into your own state. Crystal, you can't follow what we're doing here in Maryland. You've got to check into your, jurisdiction in Michigan.
You're so right. Yeah.
That's good to know because, like you say, the limits here could have been where you didn't have to go through probate, but
Mhm.
then the limits in Michigan can be something totally different. So that is very important. I'm glad that we're bringing this up because
Hmm.
it's very important that you get in touch with your state to figure out or look it up. Hopefully,
Mhm.
we can figure out, Joyce, is there some way people can look it up or go to find out what
Yes.
their state allows?
And there is, I don't have the website on hand right now, but I can share it with you all and you can post it or something. But ideally when you go into you can do like a living will search, you can do power of attorney search, and different websites will come up that will help to aid you in the steps that you should take to get these documents in place. And again, you can get them in place online. I personally, depending on how in depth your document is going to be, I personally would recommend spending the extra money to go to an attorney
Absolutely.
just to make sure that the legality of it is okay.
I
Um,
will.
and that it's been certified, and that it's okay. You're not going to have any issues. If somebody comes and says, "Oh, well, no, I want to fight that," um, you know, then you've got a document that is sound. You don't know that you have a sound document when it came offline.
Okay.
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 This is
Um,
good stuff. Good
Yes,
stuff.
it is. I'm taking notes.
so again, those are your two different types of power of attorney: your power of attorney and your durable power of attorney. Again, the power of attorney is very limited. Your durable power of attorney, there's two forms of durable power of attorney. There's your medical and there's your financial. So your medical, that will allow the agent and or attorney to make all medical decisions for you. So if you will say, I'm going to give an example. Say your one of your parents has a medical emergency. They're in the hospital and they have multiple children. They have assigned only one of those children as the agent. The other siblings go to the hospital and they want to make some decisions, some medical decisions in the absence of the agent. Legally, the hospital cannot do that. They have a document that says child A is my agent. They can only take the lead from child A. They cannot take any lead legally from child B, C, D, E, however many children that there are.
Even if it's an emergency?
Even if it's life threatening. If it's life threatening, they cannot take any direction from children B through whatever if only A has been assigned the agent.
Can you have multiple agents?
You can have multiple agents, yes. So if one is, I would suggest having multiple agents. If agent A is not available and or unwilling to make the decisions, they can then go to child B.
Got it. Okay.
But it
And
has
that's something that you should kind of know in ahead. Like, I mean, with my mom, she already kind of knows who's going to be sound minded and who's not.
That could
So I
be
think at that
emotional.
point, yeah, before you even start assigning your agents, it seemed
Mhm.
like you would have had those conversations with those
Mhm.
people. Yeah.
Absolutely,
It
absolutely.
even, but I think that's why we're having this
Mhm.
conversation.
Yeah.
Many families are not having this
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's the conversation to avoid, as
Yep.
Joyce just said, if you have multiple children, some people don't want to deal with their kids fighting and if
Mhm.
they pick this kid or that kid. But Joyce is telling us the importance.
Mhm.
You have to have someone on file, or
Exactly.
you
And
know, everybody's going to want to be in charge.
exactly. And I'll say this, Crystal, you make a very good point. Not everyone's going to be happy with the decisions that are made, but we have to respect the decisions that are made by whomever the principal is. And I'll say, as a matter of fact, my husband and I, we were just made the agents to a family member who has three adult children. But they had the conversation with the three adult children that they felt that it would be, I guess, less stressful on them for my husband and I to make the decisions when they became incapacitated and or passed. And
Wow.
had the conversation with them. They accepted it. The three adult children, know us, love us, respect us, and know that we will not do anything against what the principals would want us to do,
That's
and that we
honorable.
and
That
that
is
That's
we
honorable.
very,
and
Yeah.
that we would not be, because not all agents and attorneys actually do, once it comes down to it, especially when it comes down to the finances and things of that nature, they don't
Yeah.
always do what they're
That's
supposed
right.
to do.
Mhm.
yeah.
So you have to pick a person of integrity. And not only that, I take care of two uncles in New Jersey. When before my parents passed away, they asked take care of my last living sibling. So I take care of my uncles, in New Jersey at this time, and I take care of their finances and make sure their bills are paid and things of that nature. So and it's a big. Sometimes it's a. I won't say sometimes because one of them is married, and they didn't ensure before incapacitation that these documents were in place. So
Wow.
we are now dealing with the fact that um, the uncle does not have full access to the finances, to the retirement that was put aside, to the 401k, profit sharing, all of that, to ensure proper care for her at end of life. Uh,
Mm.
we did everything that they asked us to do to try to gain access, but it was still denied.
Wow. I'm so
Oh,
glad we're having this
wow.
conversation. This is
Yes.
so
Yeah.
important. And a lot of times in our community, we
Mhm.
don't like to talk about
We
these
don't.
topics
Yes.
in the life and pre-planning, for death. But it's so important that we are educated and that we can put in place what we desire now so that it's easy on our loved ones. This is so thank you, Joyce. This is really
Yes.
And what I would suggest is we do have families that are talking about it, but we're
Hmm.
not acting on it.
I agree.
That's right.
So
That's
there's
right. It's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of talk.
a lot of conversation. We need to do this, we need to do that. But who's acting on it?
And
You know.
some people have even said that they've done things.
Mhm.
And then when it comes down to the person pass away,
Yes.
that's when you find out that nothing is in place. I mean, you have it where you had Aretha Franklin.
Mhm.
I mean, look at
They didn't
her.
have anything in place.
No, they were like,
Mhm.
she didn't have anything in place. And first of all, the way she handled her business, you would have been like, are you kidding
Mhm.
me?
Yep.
So, even for those that are in the
Mm.
industry,
Mhm.
you're finding that a lot of these people, they're saying what, and I'm not saying she said anything, but I know that I have been a witness of people saying, oh, I have this in place. Y'all ain't got to worry
Mhm.
about this. Y'all ain't. And then
Mhm.
when it came down to it, when they passed away, you find out they had nothing in place.
Exactly.
And if you have it, you should have it where you share it with somebody. I know back in the day,
Exactly.
that was something that most people did not talk about because it
Exactly.
was almost like they felt like you couldn't trust the person. But if
Mhm.
you have something in place, you should at least have one or two people that you can entrust
Very
with
true.
that. What's the sense of having it
Absolutely.
in place and you
Absolutely.
can't find it?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And I'll say my mother-in-law, we had gone up to, she's passed away 20 years ago, and we had gone up to Massachusetts for Thanksgiving, as we normally did. And she says, Joyce, come here, I need to show you something. I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, what? Because I'm going to Cousin Sandy's to get this turkey out the oven. She's like, I need to show you something. And she pulls out this container from underneath the bed, and she says, you need to know where this is. And, this is what my wishes are. And I was like, yeah, whatever, mom, whatever, because you're not going anywhere. And my mother-in-law passed. This is November. My mother-in-law passed the following August.
Oh wow.
So
Mm.
again, we knew where everything was. It wasn't, we didn't have to hunt, and everything she said that she had done, I knew where it was, and all of that. Again, like you said, Paula, if you did it, then show me
Yeah.
where it's at. Is it in the safe deposit box? Is it under the bed? Yeah, is it in a bin in the attic? But if you've done it, I need to know where it is, because if I don't know where it is, I can't put it into play when it's
That's
necessary.
so true. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I know that my dad has been like, Crystal, have you got that fireproof, safe,
Mhm.
like to put it
Yeah.
in? And I'm like, yeah, I be in Sam's like 3 times a week.
Mhm.
I'm going to get it because I know where my stuff is, but I
Mhm.
need it all together so that I can show
Mhm.
my children and whoever else, this is where it is. This is
Exactly.
where you will find this. Thank you.
Exactly. So that's all I have on a power of attorney, other than the fact that I find it essential that you have a power of attorney.
Yes.
I
I
find it
find it
essential,
essential that you
not
have a
and not just
durable power of attorney.
I was going to say, not just a power of attorney, but a
A
durable power of
I
durable.
attorney.
agree.
If you
That's on
currently
my
have a
list.
power of attorney, go back to your attorney and get a durable power of
A
attorney.
durable.
And
Okay.
so
Yes.
and definitely having the two types, the medical and the financial.
Yes, and there's medical and financial. And the financial, again, that will allow you to be able to pay all bills. During incapacitation, pay all bills, deal with their bank accounts, pay taxes, anything that has credit cards, anything that has to do with their finances, you can take care of. Anything with the medical, it will allow you to make end of life decisions if they have do not resuscitate, anything like that. You will be the one to make sure that that's implemented. If
And
you
that's
if
one document. You can do medical and financials in one document.
two documents.
Oh, you need two
Your
durable
durable
power
power,
of attorney.
your durable power of attorney, you will need a medical document. You will need a
Oh,
financial
okay.
document. It's not one document.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And both you will need to name your agent and or attorney. You can have more than one. You can also have a primary and a secondary, or you can have them share the role. So you can have two A's, you can have an A and a B, however you want to, configure that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
because
do
some
two
people may
A's
be
and a
good on
B,
a
because when the two
medical.
A's start fussing, I'm gonna need the C to come in or the B to come in and be like, listen,
Hmm.
the decision is made.
Because
Exactly.
some people are good from a medical standpoint, but you can't trust, they may not be good with the financial part.
Exactly.
So it is good that you
Mhm.
sometimes when you have an agent for one, you may not necessarily use that agent for the other one.
I
Exactly.
like that. That's important.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, so I think that's all I have on the power of attorney.
Okay.
That's enough. That's a
Mhm.
lot.
All,
Good.
and when I say power of attorney, of course, that covers both your POA and your DPOA. Those are
Okay.
your acronyms, POA and DPOA. Um, Now, one of the other things that, of course, when you go in, I don't know if you've had surgery or not, but when you go in, they ask you, do you have a living will?
Hmm.
Your living will, that is basically what your wishes are while you're still living. And when you're going into surgery, you're having a medical procedure, you become again incapacitated, cannot represent yourself. Your living will have all of your wishes on there. If I'm in surgery and I, become, you can't intubate me anymore and I've stopped breathing. Do you want them to crush my chest and, all of that to bring me back to life? Or do you want them to allow me to just go? Do I want a blood transfusion if I need to have a blood transfusion? So it goes to the most serious things to, the most minor things. I want to be at home rather than, in a nursing care and until end of life, whatever it may be. So your living will, they will always ask you, do you have a living will? You either say, if you say no, would you like to implement one before, would you like to implement one now? So they have, advocates right there at the hospital that can get those into place for you on site.
Mhm.
And again, that's a simple document. Uh, if you have a power of attorney, durable power of attorney, you really don't need a living will.
I was
Because
just about to ask that question.
you got everything in that DPOA that you need.
Okay.
Are there any questions on the living will?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Now, I
Guardianship.
will say, let's back up real quick. I have heard of just a will versus a living will. Is that different, or is it just kind of just terminology, just the way it's called? Is it
I think that what you're referring to is last will and testament.
okay? So
Mm.
there's a last will and testament, and then there's a living will. So the living will is when you're living. The last will and testament is when you pass on.
When you're deceased. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Um, and then the last, I guess the last step that there is, if you don't have a living will and testament, if you don't have a durable power of attorney, you don't have a power of attorney, is your guardianship.
Okay.
Guardianship is really the last thing that you want to have to implement
Okay.
for your care. Guardianship is if you have absolutely nothing in place. Now, either the court is going to appoint a guardian over you, one of your family members will go in to petition to become your guardian. Billy Bob down the street, if he wants to get involved, he can go to the courts and petition to become your guardian.
And they can take your money.
Well, guardianship is very expensive.
I
So,
did it for Morgan. I
yeah.
did it for Morgan. Yeah.
So, but guardianship is very expensive. So, of course, Paula, you getting a guardianship in place for Morgan is completely different than what we're talking about now.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you're saying that because I did do guardianship over my special needs daughter to be able to make decisions. So tell us how this is different, Joyce.
Well, I won't say that. I'm not saying that the purpose of it is different.
Okay.
I'm saying the way that it was acquired is different.
Okay.
You, as a mother of a special needs child who is already incapacitated, not able to make sound decisions on their own,
Hmm.
you have that right because who else is going to make that decision for her,
No,
right?
but they actually, it's funny because they assigned her a lawyer.
I was going to say
Yeah.
they, and you had to be proven to be
Yes.
of
Correct.
sound mind and
Yes.
you know a person that would take care of her
Correct.
properly as
And
But
a,
who
to
will pay
even
for that
know her
attorney
needs,
though?
I'm
to
sorry.
even know her needs.
Exactly,
Paula,
exactly.
did you have to pay for the attorney?
No, what
Oh,
I
okay.
paid for, now I will say this, before Morgan turned 18, they
Mhm.
had a bunch of different, and it was one during a pandemic where they had like a seminar through the school system, and they were telling you they had this attorney on there. He was telling us we had to pay thousands of dollars, and all of her people was like, Paula, you could do that on your own. I
Mhm.
paid $144. I went in there and I had to become her guardian over, she doesn't have property, but over her finances.
Mhm.
And I had to be, they assigned her a lawyer. He
Okay.
represented her. And
Mhm.
then what he had to do was come out to the house, interview me. So you're right, Joyce.
Yes.
He had to really make sure that I understood what her needs are. And then he had to meet with me to see that kind of, I don't know how they could see that you have her best interests at
Interest.
heart,
They need to
but
know
they
it.
have to, yeah.
Exactly. And with that, again, I say it's different, Paula, because like you didn't have anybody that was fighting for guardianship over Morgan Pop, right?
If her father would have come, it
Exactly.
would have been, yeah,
He could
he could
petition
have
the court
he
as
could have
well.
petitioned the court as
But you
well.
didn't have anybody for fight that was fighting.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's where the problem comes in, is when
Okay.
you've got multiple people that
Mm,
want to be guardian. One, the state can say, well, we're going to take over.
yeah.
And then two, mother wants to do it, daddy wants to do it, the sister down the road that hasn't
Hmm.
had anything to do with her all of her life wants to be
Hmm.
guardian, and Billy Bob down the street wants to be guardian. Well, now
Hmm.
you have five people interested in taking care of this one person. Who is going to be the person that has the best interest for Morgan at
Hmm.
hand, or for your loved one at hand? Now you've got to go in court. They're not just going to sit down and interview just like they did you, Paula. We've got
Hmm.
to go to court now. We've got to go to court. Everybody has to have an attorney, and they have to prove who's going to have the best interest of this child. And that's where the expense comes in. That's where the thousands and thousands of dollars come in. And
Especially
then
if you have property too. You're
your
right.
property, your
Yeah.
property, any of that. The
Yeah.
larger your estate,
Hmm.
and your estate, comes into play at death, but you still have an estate, while you're living.
Hmm.
Um, so people aren't, trying to get things from the estate until you passed away. But the larger your estate, the more difficult it is to prove who's going to have the best interest at hand of that particular principal. Again, the principal is the person that the document is being put into place for.
Okay.
So again, guard and even when a guardian is assigned, you got people who are smooth talkers and
Hmm.
Right.
smooth talk themselves into position, and before you know it, they've been assigned guardian, and this person is bled of everything that they have,
Yep.
because now this guardian has full realm over any and everything that you have. Your
Hmm.
medical, are they going to make the right decision to keep you alive?
Yeah.
If your wishes were to live, to bring me back to life if I die, do everything you can to bring me back to life? Or are they going to just let you die because once they die, the access is there? you know Not all people have the best intentions, though they may say that they do. So you, as the principal, as the party that's getting these documents in place, you have the opportunity to say who I want to make decisions for me. So just take the time and get it in place. Don't let someone, and even family members will take advantage of you. Family members will take advantage,
Absolutely.
you know. So, again, just do what we have to do while we have the opportunity to do so. And while we're doing it, the stress that we take off of our family members that are left behind
That's right.
is, is invaluable. It's invaluable because if you go into probate, which we'll talk about, if you go into probate can take years
Mm.
before it's settled. And by the time it comes out of probate, you've lost half of the value of the estate, two-thirds of the estate.
Hmm.
There,
Right.
in my eyes, probate is to take what they can take and leave you what the minimum of what you're going to get from that estate. Um,
Hmm.
you know, um, so just do what we can to ensure that we've protected our rights and our wishes, as well as the well-being of those family members that are left behind.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
it is. It
Mhm.
really is. It's something that I hope most of our listeners, I hope all of our listeners take heed to, no matter what your age, because I think um, and I've seen this so many times where unfortunately somebody dies in their 20s or their 30s. It's
Mhm.
never too early to get this stuff together. And
Mhm.
I think even when stuff happens, people are surprised and people are like, well, we didn't expect for them to pass away. At
Mhm.
this point, everybody, now I'm not gonna lie, in my 20s, I didn't have my stuff together.
Mhm.
In my 30s, I think later in my 30s, I had, my life insurance and stuff.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
to have all of this stuff in order, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But this is really not the day and time. I think too, some of it was a lack of understanding, or
Mhm.
yeah, most of the time we weren't told these things.
Mhm.
We weren't.
And as the Black community, it's not something that's talked about.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Not
Yeah.
something that it wasn't talked about then. And you know, depending on what your social status is, you may talk about it now, you may not talk about it. What type of employment do you have, and does your employer offer life insurance? Does your employer offer disability, things of that nature? If it's not something that's brought up to us, is it something that we would think of on a regular daily basis? you
Yeah.
know and like you said, with life insurance and things of that nature, that's not really part of facilitating the end of life for our loved ones. But life insurance is important.
Yeah.
When you go on Facebook and you have what are those things where where your people are donating money.
GoFundMe. That's
GoFundMe.
that's
GoFundMe's.
become the new life
You're having
insurance.
GoFundMe's. Yeah, that's become the new life insurance. But
Yeah.
you realize how long you've got to hold your loved one, you know, um, to get the money to bury them, you
And then
know,
a percentage that I didn't know that, and it makes sense that they
goes
take a
back.
percentage of that.
Exactly, exactly. And you don't have to have, $100,000 worth of life insurance
Mm-mm.
to bury your loved one. All of our children, we held life insurance on all of our children,
Hmm.
for years. And actually, until they got married, we held. So we've got two adult children that are married. We held life insurance on them until they were married. We have one child that is not married. We hold life insurance on him. When he gets married and they're well established, we will go ahead and turn that life insurance over to him for him to continue payment on.
Hmm.
And again, even with that, do you want term insurance? Do you want whole insurance? You want
Yep.
whole insurance?
Yep. There's a difference.
I
That's
got
that's
hold.
we
Let them
need to
tell you
we need a
terms.
podcast. We need
We
a
need a
podcast
podcast
on that.
just on the types of
I'm
Yes.
insurance.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to different. I'm going
No,
to
but
different
it's
areas
true.
now.
Yes.
But those people who don't have life insurance, when you go to bury your loved one, if they don't have life insurance, where are you going to get that money to pay your loved one, to bury your loved one in a respectful manner? Where
But
you're going to have
people
to borrow
people
from
are
your
used to
401k,
passing
you're
10
going to have to
cups.
get a loan. You're going to, you know what I'm saying? So, again, start a Gerber on your kids, and so, you know what I'm saying. And even with that Gerber, when they turn 18 years old, you can cash it in, for its value, a certain portion of the value, give it to them for college, or you can continue it and it doubles at the age of 18. These are things that people just don't know, don't think about, whatever. But for me, it all comes into caring for the longevity of our family and the care and
Mhm.
wishes of our family. But again, that's another podcast. I'm sorry.
No
Um,
problem.
Good.
um, the last will and testament, Paula, as you said,
Mhm.
the last will and testament, again, that comes into play after death. Your last will and testament, again, you have now you have your Lord Jesus, I forgot. You have the person that you have appointed to oversee the will, to make sure that all of your wishes are met in the will, to facilitate making sure that whomever your beneficiaries are to the will, that they receive exactly what is meant for them to receive. Um, we want you to sell the house. We want you to sell the cars. We want you to sell all the art, uh, divide it up, pay off all the bills, divide it up amongst our beneficiaries evenly. Are there any special wishes to give one beneficiary something in excess of what the other three get? That needs to be written out plain as well. So anything that you wish to have in your will done needs to be written out plain as well. Okay. And again, just like in the durable power of attorney, you can have two people who oversee that, that have equal rights. You can have the one, and then you can have the backup in
Mhm.
case. And the backup again comes into play if one, the individual that is appointed, does not want to or is incapable of doing so. because what happens if they became incapacitated? What
Right.
if the principal and the executor, so the people who are assigned over a will are called executors. Executors, executrix. Um, so what if the two people are together, the principal and the executor are together, and now he's dead, the principal is dead, and the executor is incapacitated? What do you do if you don't have a backup? Because now the will, you don't have anybody to facilitate it. Now you're going to go into probate because you don't have anybody to facilitate it. So I would
Mm.
recommend a backup. These are all things that you don't think of.
Yeah.
So Joyce, let me ask you a question. So can someone contest a durable power of attorney
Mhm.
or a living will? Can say if my mom had one, someone else was the agent,
Mhm.
could I contest the 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 living will?
You can contest it. However, if you contest it, that person's going under guardianship of the state.
Oh.
That person's going into guardianship of the state now because you've got a conflict of who is caring for this
Mm.
person. So, for whatever reason, you feel that the person that's been appointed does not have the best interest of your mother at hand.
Mhm.
Example here
Yeah,
doesn't
that's just an example. I shouldn't have said that. Let's
example.
say
I'm
Mary Johnson.
clarifying. Exactly. So I'm clarifying. Does not
Yeah.
have the best interest of Mary Johnson, right?
Hmm.
So I want to contest it. Well, if you're contesting it because you don't think that this person has the best interest of Mary Jackson,
Hmm.
who's going to care for her? Who's going to make the decisions for her? Because you've gone to court and
Mm.
said this person does not have the best interest of Mary Jackson at hand. So now the state has to step in to facilitate her care until the courts figure out who has the best interest.
Mm.
Oh,
This is why
wow.
it's a good example. I mean, a good reason to make sure that you
Mhm.
are picking somebody that's not emotional, that will make the best and sound decisions for your finances and your medical care. This is so important.
Now, emotional is okay because you can be emotional, but you can't. While being emotional, you have to remain sound-minded.
Yeah.
You cannot start to make decisions outside of what the principal would want.
I'll be in. Don't do that to her. No, I don't get what she said.
Exactly.
She wasn't
Exactly.
in her right mind when she said it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, so it can all these documents can always be contested. They can
Mhm.
always be contested.
But
Um,
like you say, it may throw it into probate at that point. So
mhm,
yeah, it's definitely best to really think about your decisions. And I've heard this so many times when they say that sometimes people make hard decisions about, selecting somebody. Say,
mhm,
for instance, you want to select somebody to oversee your finances, but
mhm,
their finances are jacked up, but
mhm.
you
Oh wow.
close to them.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's that's where it becomes sticky because you really have to see things through a clear lens and
Mhm,
you have to make wise choices. And
mhm,
I've heard some people say that because of that type of stuff, it has caused them to sever relationships with people because
mhm,
say that it's your sister or your brother and you're really close to them, but they don't do their own finances good.
mhm,
And
mhm,
they just assume that you don't have any kids, you're just gonna, leave everything to them. And if
mhm,
they find out, hey, no, you haven't left everything to
mhm,
them,
mhm.
it's like that would cause some people to sever relationships.
Exactly. But what people have to understand is the executor to a will, you have not left your estate to the executor. You've only left the management of your estate to the executor. There's a
Mm.
difference. There's a difference over who is executing your wishes to the beneficiaries of the estate.
Mhm.
That's what has to be understood. The executor has the option of, again, depending on the state jurisdiction, each state has a percentage that the executor can take from the total estate
Mhm.
as payment for executing the estate and making sure that everything is followed through as the principal, the person whose will it is, has requested. So they can take that percentage or not,
Mhm.
but it doesn't affect the fact that the beneficiaries are the one that's going to benefit from the sale of the house, the sale of the car, the sale of all the expensive art and jewelry and all of that. So that's what some people don't understand is they think, well, you left everything to her. No, I didn't leave anything to her. I left it to her to facilitate, to make sure that those people that should get the benefit of this estate actually receives it. That they pay, that they make sure that all of my credit cards are closed out and that they know that I've passed away, to make sure that the state taxes, they know that I passed away, to make sure that, the mortgage company knows that, I passed away. You're still required to pay the mortgage, right? To make sure that you confirm with the Social Security Department, if they're receiving SSI, confirm with the Social Security Department that the funeral home has contacted them to notify them that the individual has passed away. A funeral home has a legal liability to contact the Social Security office to advise them that this individual is deceased, so that no further payments are made to this person.
I never knew that.
Wow.
It's funny because on 60 Minutes that I saw, people were still getting checks because they were never they didn't report that the family member had passed away. So now what you're saying is they trickled that down to the funeral home.
So
legal
liability of the funeral home. Could it slip that they don't do it? Did something happen that it got crossed in the records? I don't know. But you, as the executor of the estate, should follow up to ensure that they know that this individual has deceased, has passed on. Any payments that are received after the date of death, they want that money back.
That's right.
Won't spend it because they coming for that money, and they're not going to wait for you to sell the house to get their money back. They want that money right away.
A lot of people ended up in major debt with the Social Security. I mean, and people were like, "Well, I can't afford to pay it back." They don't care. They want that money.
Back. If it was so, say your loved one passed away on the 16th of the month, and their payment hit the bank on the 14th of the month, that's the estate's money.
Huh?
Because it was deposited 2 days before the person passed away.
So he said the estate, not the state.
Estate, yes, the estate.
So if it was mine, then that's still my money, Bunny, because it was deposited on the 14th and I passed away on the 16th.
Right,
exactly.
so it's your money, right?
Yes.
I
know. Bunny was like,
Right, I thought I heard that we got to send that money back.
No.
So I was like, no, that money's going to
stay. If the person passes, if the money is deposited on the 16th and the person passes on the 16th and beyond, that money goes back.
Wait a minute.
The person died on the 16th. The person died on the 16th. They can't use that money.
Why not?
Because they're dead.
They probably died later on.
Doesn't matter. If they pass them,
where they gonna prorate the money, Bunny? Based off the time?
Listen. Y'all already know how that money works. That money was already spent before it hit that account. We need that money.
That's the problem.
On the date of or after, that money goes back to the Social Security Department.
Oh, they wrong for that. Just let the people have that money, that last check.
Yep.
They
the federal government.
That's not what they do.
Oh my goodness.
Again, one other thing that I wanted to discuss as far as spouses. A lot of spouses, a lot of households, they have one account where all the money goes, my paycheck goes into one, the joint account, and the husband's account money goes into the joint account, pay. And then like Warren and I, we have a joint account that all the bills come out of. And then he has an individual account and I have an individual account. And those monies in our individual accounts, that's the money that we can spend freely, right? So I can go out and spend that money any way that I want. And he can go out and spend the money in his individual account any way that he wants. Now, we don't necessarily see I know ideally what he has in it most of the time. And he knows what I have in mind most of the time. But those accounts are not tied to the joint account. Say, this is just an example. Say those accounts are not tied to the joint account, right? His name isn't on my account, my individual account. My name isn't on his. When one of us passes away, we've got full access to the joint account. But because my name isn't on his individual account as a joint owner,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any access to that money. None. So what needs to be done for a family, a couple, make sure one that you make your spouse a joint owner,
Oh.
not necessarily giving him a ATM card or anything, but within the bank system, he or she is a joint owner,
Mm-hmm.
and or they have survivor rights. Go to the bank and ask for survivor rights so that when you pass away, they can go to the bank. My name is Joyce Cox. I have survivor. My husband passed away. This is a death certificate. I have survivor rights, and you'll have immediate access to those funds.
Yeah, I
Okay.
had to
Do
do that.
survivor rights only pertain to the mate, or does it pertain to anybody who has?
Anyone that you
Yeah,
want to have access to those funds.
yeah, I did my husband and my daughter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyone that you want to have access to those funds. So it doesn't have to be if you want to be a child, you want to be a sister, whomever.
Okay,
But if you're single, you should still have somebody that you have on,
I agree.
that account for survivor rights, because otherwise nobody has access to that money.
Mm-hmm.
Joint account owners or survivor rights.
And
Um,
I think what people have done to improvise from doing
mhm,
that is, and I've always heard this, when somebody dies, go to the ATM and
And
go
take
until
out
you
all the
can get
money.
all the money out. Now, what if
Mhm.
somebody has five figures, but they were like, listen, go to the ATM, and if the limit is 2,000, just keep taking $2,000
mhm.
out until the bank finds out that they've passed away.
I was going to say, but and then the legality of it is, does somebody come back and say, well, they depleted that account,
Mm-hmm.
and we want that money back.
Oh
We
Oh
yeah.
want that
yeah.
money back. We've got proof that they went through and they pulled $102,000 and 10 cents out of can't get 10
Got my face on camera.
cents. And
Take your
we
money.
want that money back to the estate.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a survivor and or a joint account owner,
Mm-hmm.
when the individual deceases, that account becomes the account of the joint owner, becomes the account of the survivor that you have appointed. If you don't have anybody joint owner or survivor, it becomes the property of the estate.
Wow.
So, you know, you might need to be able to access that account to pay bills.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody passes away, the bills in the household still need to be
Still
paid,
need to be paid. Hmm.
right? Now you can get rid of, all you really have to do is present the death certificate for whomever it is that passed away. And ideally, normally credit card companies, store accounts, things of that nature, they'll write those accounts off. But the mortgage company, you're living in that house until you sell it. They're going to want their money, unless you're going to allow it to go into foreclosure. They're still going to want their money.
Mm-hmm.
The car note people, if you're not going to turn the car in, they're still going to want the car notes, or they're going to come repo it just like they repo anybody else's car.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's good to be able to have access to that money by the right person to be able to continue to pay your accounts, because what you really need to do is, once the person deceases, then you need to open up an estate account. So you go to the bank, and now you're opening up an estate on the behalf of the deceased person. And all monies that come in from sales of vehicles, sales of furniture, gets deposited into the estate account.
But you
Because
have to be the agent or an executor to do that,
executor
right?
to do that, yes,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And it's your responsibility of the executor to be able to trace every dime that goes out of that account and every dime that goes into it. So at the end of preparing to close out that estate, you should be able to give a full account of every transaction that you made on that executive and on that estate account to the beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, okay.
if they have any questions about any transactions that were made, you need to be able to answer them. But if you have a clear paper trail of everything that was occurred in that account, there shouldn't be any questions.
Now you wouldn't have to do that if the person is the agent, executor, and the beneficiary. You don't have to do that, right?
If you're the only beneficiary, no. But if there's multiple beneficiaries, yes. So if you've
That's
got
another conversation, making sure that you know who your beneficiary is.
well,
Mhm.
ideally, like when my father did his will, the attorney sent everything to the siblings, to the all of the children, and we all reviewed it and said, okay, those are his wishes. We all agreed to it. And then after we all agreed to it, my father wanted to make sure we all agreed to it. Then that's when my father went back to his office and signed it, to make it a legal document.
Yeah, I need
So
to go and look back on mine because I can't remember.
I mean, it's good to, before you make anybody an executor of your account, before you make anybody the agent or attorney for your power of attorney, or uh your living will, or your last will and testament, whatever it is, it's good to have the conversation with the individuals, like the loved one that Warren and I have, that made us the executors and agents of their documents. They came to us first and asked us and said, we'll be up sometime, whenever, we'll bring them up, we'll talk about them at that time. But we just want to know, is it okay? Will you accept the responsibility? Because if you don't talk to them, what if they're not interested in it? What if they just,
Right.
what if they don't think they can handle it? What if they've got so much going on in their life now that they just don't know, you know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever, 2 days from now, if they can handle it, if they want to handle it. It is
Right.
it's a big job. It's a big job. And you are legally responsible. If something goes wrong with that account, and there's a legal action or something like that, you as the agent, you become the legal party that is responsible for it. The courts don't have Mary Jane to come after. They only have you because you're the agent.
Mm.
This has been so
Wow.
good, Joyce. I had so many
Yeah.
questions, but I'll wait.
It's food for thought. It's definitely food for thought, and it's
Yes.
definitely something that's needed. This is a conversation that needs to be had amongst families
Yes.
that
Yes.
has not been had over the years. And I know for my grandmother, I know my grandmother told us where all of her funeral stuff was. I mean, it was just like clockwork. My mom them knew where to go get it. But as far as the power of attorney, as far as all of us, we never, I mean, those were things that we did not hear about. And I think that's where a lot of conflicts in family come from,
Yeah.
because people don't, and I understand that sometimes these are tough decisions to make, even while you're alive. It's tough decisions,
Yeah.
but you have to make those decisions so that you don't leave a whole mess behind. You don't.
Absolutely. And we need to really get our elderly
Mhm.
um people, like, they need this information because I'm almost certain that a lot of them may not know this.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I
Um,
think they do like what Paul is saying, and you too, Bunny. I think sometimes when I look at some of our older members in our family, they're like, "Well, I told my daughter she know what to
Mhm.
do. She know the bank account. She got to go get that money out." It's
mhm.
like a word of mouth,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
Yeah.
and then to me, but that's the greater confusion
Mm-hmm.
when we arrive at the situation. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, my mom or my daddy told me to do this. No, they didn't, because they told me, and then now it's people's against each other.
Yep.
And like Bunny was saying earlier, then you got people and stuff, you know, whether it's legit or not, they
Mm-hmm.
still just want to contest. Like, well, I don't know. I think he changed his mind since then. That
Mm-hmm.
was 20 years ago, and
Yeah.
you know, it is definitely a conversation. It is something that my brother and I have like pressed on our parents, and
Mm-hmm.
like we put it on them real good, as far as like the pressure, like
Definitely.
keep bringing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad was like, well, you guys know what to do, and I was like, I understand that, but the more I learned, the more we were like, well, can we do this the right way so we're not left with a lot of aftermath? We both have families, We live in two different states.
Mhm.
We both have our livelihoods. We don't want to be left with stuff unnecessarily because we're all of a sound mind now and we can actually put some things in motion.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I will say, I think it may have been like Bunny just said, sometimes our seniors and our older family members don't know. So I do think it was like not knowing really what steps to take.
Yes.
And we just start researching, like, well, we should do this. We should do
Mhm.
this. We start looking into trust, into
Mhm.
wills, into this. And then my parents really start flowing with us, and that really helped. So I
Mhm.
think this is just so vital to
Yeah.
families, to our community, to
Absolutely.
caregivers,
And
loved
with you
ones.
mentioning trust now, that's something that I'm starting to look into for one of my uncles now. I don't know enough on it to talk about at this point in time because we
Mhm.
really just started looking into it. It wasn't something that we had to worry about with with my parents. It's not something that we've done for ourselves, but it's something that we're going to look into because that's an extra level of protection.
I
Yeah.
did trust.
So,
I did a trust. I
mhm.
did do a trust and I have a living will. So I think I've done everything except for the durable power of attorney. I have a regular power of attorney and I have spoken to my son even before, I got married.
Mhm.
I spoke to my son in great depth. And I was just like, these are the things that I wanted. I've even talked to my cousin Crystal, of
Mhm.
course,
Mhm.
because these are things that, I mean, at this point, for me, when my kids were younger, I definitely relied on my family and I made sure that they knew what I wanted. But now, as I've gotten older, my kids have gotten older, it's like things are different. But I wanted to make
Mhm.
sure all of that was in place. And I did go today and I didn't know this extra layer where you can put it on file in the court. The only
Mhm.
thing for Charles County that they would allow me, I did it today. I put my will, they would only take my will.
Mhm.
They didn't take my trust. They didn't take my power of attorney, my medical advancement. They
Mhm.
didn't take any
Mhm.
of that. So I paid $5 to put that on file.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
wow. So
Yeah.
you put your trust in a name, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
I
And
need to do
I
that.
mean, I put everything in there. I even put my funeral. I put
Mhm.
how I wanted my funeral.
Mhm.
I even put who I wanted to speak at my funeral because for me, I didn't want to open mic. I just
Mhm.
don't want
Right.
that.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I even listed everything. I mean, and it was a really a thorough thing. It was something I didn't even think about some of the things. And I was like, wow. I was like, they ain't no big deal. But then when I thought about it, I said, yeah, it is. I
Mhm.
even broke it down as far as like with my son, at what age he gets what. I
Oh,
broke that down.
wow. Is
Mhm.
And
that it's
so
a form? The trust was a form, Paula?
yes, it was
Okay.
a document and it's called,
Mhm.
I named it and I went through thoroughly and I took the time to fill it out.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think Paula and I have had many conversations about this
Mhm.
because we always talk raising our children with disabilities. And
Mhm.
so my oldest daughter, when she was turning 18, she's currently 24. That was like one of the first things for us to do, and that's what got the wheels turning. It was important, like what happens to her,
Yeah.
as life keeps moving. And so, we went to a lawyer and we put a will in place. And then I opened up a special needs trust to
Mhm.
put money in for her because I felt like whoever has to care for her, I don't ever want it to be a financial burden
Mhm.
and things like that. And then I
Mhm.
was like, Paula, will you handle all my finances? I don't want nobody trying to take all my kids' money.
Yeah.
But
Like
that
you talk to her.
yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about me and Paula have always had these conversations,
Yeah.
and it's funny because now talking to you, Joyce, this is important. Paula and I talked a lot back then because we were most concerned with our children and how their disabilities affect them. But this was just something you need in life, period.
Period.
As a parent, I should have this in place
Mhm.
regardless. And I think that wasn't my thinking. It was like, oh,
Mhm.
she's turning 18. Let's put these things in motion. So
Mhm.
this conversation is just so needed for so to get those wheels turning and
Yeah.
families who are not thinking about it, and the families who are not thinking about their little kiddos that have disabilities, or
Mhm.
that,
Not
because
even
I always tell my kids, we're not guaranteed to be here. Tomorrow's
that's
not
it.
promised.
That's it. That's it. Not you don't even have to have a child with a disability.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
Children pass, unfortunately,
That's
children are
right.
passing away just as adults are.
Yeah,
And you should be able to not have a financial burden
yeah,
Yes.
to bury your child and be able to bury your child respectfully
yeah.
Yes.
if it comes to that. And life insurance is very, again, you don't have to get rich off of your child's life insurance. You don't
Mm-mm.
have to
That's
get rich
right.
off your husband's life insurance. Just have enough to be
Enough.
able
To
to
bury.
bury your loved
That's
one
right.
respectfully if
I
something happens that's unexpected, you know.
and I say that when I say that, I really mean I know that the GoFundMe's were like when they first came out, everybody was like, oh, everybody heartstrings. But what I always say is, I mean, death is something you don't want to be faced with, especially unexpectedly.
Mhm,
But guess what? Whether you died in a car crash or whether you had a heart attack, you're dead.
mhm,
So you should have that information in place. I don't
mhm,
know how many people came to me asking me to donate to a GoFundMe. And I'm like, do
mhm.
you understand? And I remember they used to say, we still trying to live.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I'm being for real. I would never donate that type of money to
Mhm,
someone because when they are dead, when they're being buried, your money is being buried with them. And then
mhm,
we still got to live. That doesn't even make sense. So, what
mhm,
that says to me is for me as a single mom, I've had to make that sacrifice. I had good gobs
Mm.
of
mhm.
life insurance when Jeremy and Morgan was young because
Exactly.
I knew their needs. So
Mhm.
for me, if it all it takes is a sacrifice.
That's it.
Yes.
Everybody should have life
Mhm.
Life
insurance. If
insurance.
you
That's
If you
not,
right.
can buy coffee
you
every
should
day,
have
you
that
can
money
have
in the
life
bank.
insurance. If you can pay buy if you can
That's
buy
right.
a cup of coffee every day, you can have life insurance.
That's right.
That's right.
And this is a funny story. It's funny, but it's not funny. Warren, those that know Warren, Bunny in particular, he used to ride motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came to me and said, I want to get a motorcycle, I said, you get whatever you want, but hold on, I'm gonna call Janet, our life insurance agent.
Yeah.
I said, because I'm getting ready to up your
That's
life insurance.
real.
I said, and everybody was like, Joyce, that is so cruel. I said, no, it's not. If
No,
he's
it's
No,
dumb
not.
enough, if he's dumb enough to ride, I'm smart enough to make sure that me
that's
and my
right.
children are taken care of
That's right.
because there's cars on the road that don't care about you being on that motorcycle.
That's right.
And if you're going to ride that motorcycle, if something happens to you, I have to make sure that these children and myself, because our kids were young,
Yeah.
these children and myself are going to be taken care of,
That's
right?
just
And
real.
I don't know how many people literally that were in the group of guys that he was riding with. It had to be two or three that were killed on the motorcycles with no life insurance. Why are you on a motorcycle with no life insurance?
Yes.
Yep.
Why are you getting in a car without no life insurance?
I
Why
don't
are
get
you walking out the front door without no life
Come
insurance?
on.
At
Come
the
Why
front
on.
are you
door.
living without life insurance? But
and
then
we
what burns me up, and I remember when I was younger, but we're a lot more advanced. Because
Mhm,
anytime my grandmother used to clean people's homes and my grandmother had her stuff in order,
mhm,
there's no way anybody shouldn't have life insurance. But then when it happens, when something happens, everybody want to pass the tin cup. How
yeah.
much you think is going to be put in that?
And then what people have to understand is Social Security. Like, oh, well, you get money from Social Security. You get $250 from Social Security as a death benefit. You know why you get $250 from Social Security as a death benefit? Because when the system went into place, that's how much it costs to bury someone.
Oh my.
Wow.
It does. They have not advanced the amount to
That
real
was back in the caveman days.
to real time.
But then
What are
they
you gonna
want gold caskets.
you can't even find a lay, the
Yeah,
flower
that's
lay,
crazy.
to go on the casket for $250, unless it's gonna
Right.
be a lay, you
And
know.
nobody wants a
Isn't
wooden
that how
box.
much it costs to open up the ground, possibly?
It
Nobody
costs
wants a wooden
around
box. Nobody wants a cheap Salvation Army suit. Everybody wants to get the top of the line suit. They want
Mhm,
to get the top of the line casket. And that's my thing. It's like, but how did you prepare for this?
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I know this is off the subject, everyone, but this is all part of
it's needed.
Yes,
taking
Yes, it is.
all taking
absolutely.
part of taking care of your business so that
Yes.
when you become incapacitated, when you pass away, the stress level that is on your family is lessened and you are taken care of in the way that you would want to be taken care of in the manner
Yes.
what your wishes are. what your wishes are on paper. If you don't have your wishes on paper, we don't know what to do. All we can do is do our best.
And if you
Yeah.
don't have any money, can't nobody do it.
It
That's
even
just the
costs to
reality.
cremation
People
used
don't
to
want
be
to get
cheap.
cremated.
Cremation
It's
is not as
expensive now.
expensive as you think. You know, you have to
Mhm.
buy. So you still, especially like if you have a viewing of the deceased person,
Yeah, rent the casket.
You gotta
you
rent
have
the
to
cash,
rent,
gotta do all
you
that.
have to rent the casket. You have to buy the liner that goes in the casket that they will take to the crematorium. So, and then if you're having a service, so it's not really
It's
that.
not cheap
It's
anymore.
It's
not
not
as
really
cheap.
as inexpensive as you think it is.
Hmm.
It's
So,
not.
Yeah, but I really appreciate you coming on, Joyce, because I want you to learn more about the trust so that you can come on here and tell us about the trust. Because I
Yeah.
think no, for real, but I think this is definitely. I hope that this podcast would definitely educate people, and
Yeah.
a lot of people have been saying that they wanted us to do a podcast that focused on like end of life documents and different things. So I
mhm.
hope that this helps someone. All I can say is go handle your business. If you haven't
Yes.
already, go
Absolutely.
handle your business and go have these conversations.
Absolutely,
Yes.
Yes.
absolutely. I hope,
Crystal, do you
hope
have any?
something that was said tonight benefits someone. So,
Oh,
I'm gonna let you close us
absolutely.
out, Joyce, but go ahead, Crystal.
Absolutely. I think Joyce opened up a door, a window, a seat for families to sit in and
Right.
have these conversations about how they want to be taken care of. And then even families of caregivers who take care of those that may not be able to, you know what I mean? Like sometimes their affairs aren't in order.
mhm,
So it's just a moment to tighten up the reins, start going through your paperwork, get paperwork together. So
mhm,
this is definitely, I hope someone has have a takeaway tonight. I
mhm.
really do.
Bonnie.
Absolutely. This has been just amazing, Joyce. Thank you so much.
Yes.
You touched on power of attorney, durable power of attorney, guardianship, living will, and last will and testament.
Yes.
Yes.
So those are important topics to discuss and to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to pre-plan for those moments and times when we can't speak for ourselves.
That's
So thank
right.
you so much. This has been amazing.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, again, all of this, I'm not a professional at this. This is all knowledge that I learned through my journey. Um,
Hmm.
and knowledge is power. Knowledge is
Mhm.
power. And we should share that with there you go. Knowledge is power. And yeah, right? But again, I think it's our responsibility as a community to
Mhm.
educate, because especially in our community to educate, because these topics just aren't talked about,
Mhm.
and there's just too often that we don't have the documents in place, and that our wishes as individuals aren't being met because we didn't tell anybody,
Mhm.
and families are being separated and put at war against each other because dad told me this or dad told you that, and it's hearsay. It's hearsay unless it's not put in a legal document. So again, I hope that something was said this evening is beneficial to someone, and as Crystal said, a door is open, your mind is spinning, and you have the desire to go out and take care of business, take
Mhm.
care of business.
And I also want to, before you jump in there, Paula, I want to add that we will add some resources. Joyce will contact us with some resources so that if anyone wants to know or have forms or where you can find forms, that we'll be able to provide that.
All right, thank you for Bunny. Yeah, thanks for jumping in and saying that because we definitely asked Joyce to provide some of those resources. So ask your questions. Joyce is gonna be on here answering all of your questions. She's gonna try to provide links and different things to a lot of the resources, so you have no excuse. No excuse.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, we thank you again, Joyce, for joining us. This has been a long time coming.
Thank you
She's
for having
educated
me.
us. I have my notes. I have
And I
my
know.
yes. So,
Wow.
yes, yes. So she's been educating us all, and we definitely appreciate it. We will end this by saying, everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next Thursday. Thanks
Thank
again,
you. Thanks
Joyce,
for
for
having
being
me.
here.